Okay, we are live, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry to be a few minutes late. We're over here hustling because that's what we do as entrepreneurs. And that's certainly what we do as ghostwriters and coaches and developmental editors, which Danielle and I are. We've got people we've got to respond to, and that is what we were doing this morning. Hence why we're a little bit late jumping on here. But we are here for the open book broadcast where we talk about anything and everything, publishing, writing, and all the steps in between. And we're an open book about it. And I'm so pumped to have my fellow friend and colleague, Danielle Perlin-Good, with me this morning. Danielle, hi.
Hi, Allie. Thank you so much for having me today. Again, I do apologize for late as well.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are going to have a kick-ass episode anyway. So let's jump in, and I really want to introduce you properly and not just be like, this is my friend and fellow badass Danielle. So let's do like an actual bio, yeah? Danielle Perlin-Good is the Soul-Aligned, so good, Soul-Aligned Ghostwriter and an award-winning best-selling author. She helps company founders and leaders share their powerful legacies by unleashing their memoirs, self-help, personal growth, and leadership books so they can create a massive impact and transfer lives. Danielle and I are like cut from the same cloth. I love this. Since 2008, Danielle has written and edited hundreds of articles, books, social media content, e-newsletters, and more. She went from working overnight shifts at the Tribune Company to corporate digital marketing gigs, one of which was at Albert Whitman & Co., an esteemed children's publishing house. Danielle uses mindset techniques, exceptional editing and interviewing skills, as well as quantum healing modalities to ensure her clients develop a beautifully crafted and publishable book that they will forever cherish. In her free time, Danielle enjoys swimming, practicing yoga, being outside, and spending time with her husband and their 2 children. So, an official, warmest welcome to Danielle.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be here and chat about ghostwriting and publishing and all that jazz.
Yeah, all that jazz. So let's talk ghostwriting. Like, let's just jump in. Because there are tons of things that people out there do not understand about ghostwriting. Yeah, and I don't even know where to begin. So let's start here. How would you describe ghostwriting to somebody who has never heard about it before?
That's a great question. What I like to say is in the ghostwriting client relationship, the ghostwriter is responsible for about 80% of the development of the content, conducting the interviews, getting the material. That 20% from the client is crucial because if we don't have that 20%, we don't have any of the content to play around with, right? So a lot of people don't realize the amount of time, effort, and energy it takes to put content together in book form, right? So a lot of people come to me and say, Danielle, I don't have time to write my book, or they don't want to write it themselves because they don't consider themselves to be writers, right? And I'm sure you have this as well. And what I say is, okay, how do you envision this process going, right? I like to hear what somebody thinks first, and then we discuss what my process is, right? So what I like to do is I meet with clients on a weekly basis for at minimum 3 months. And the reason we do that is so that we can get that content going. We have that momentum. If we don't have that momentum and that content, then I don't have as much to write, right? A ghostwriter, as we talked about before we went on here, I'm not a mind reader, and neither are you, Allie. If we
That would be really cool, though. I mean, our jobs would be a
cool.
lot easier if we could just mind read, because literally people could be like, here's my mind. Now go make some art out of it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you know, I always think of that old Twilight Zone episode with the telepathy and mind reading. And anyways, that's completely besides the point. But what I think of when somebody doesn't quite understand ghostwriting is, do you really want to write the book yourself, or do you want somebody else to write it?
Yeah.
And what are the reasonings behind that, right? Are you willing to let go of the control there is behind the organization and flow of the writing process, right? And then are you willing as the client to show up for those meetings? Are you willing to
Yeah.
spend that 20% of your time and energy on this project over the next few months, right? I usually work with my clients 6 to 9 months. However, I like to say that first 3 months is crucial for getting that content so that I have what I need to write, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, really important. And I think a lot of people don't quite understand the differences between an editor and a ghostwriter, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important to distinguish that. And then, for a coach or an editor, if you're, coaching, if you're a book coach and you're also doing a developmental edit, let's say, the reverse, I like to say, is true, right? The author is more responsible for adhering to those deadlines and those responsibilities. And that's about 80%, right? And then the coach is about 20%. And the investment reflects that, right? And that's really important as well.
Yeah. So let's break this down for folks. So ghostwriting is basically hiring somebody else to pen the words on your behalf.
Yep.
Coaching, right? Coaching, working with a book coach or a writing coach, is somebody guiding you through the process of a certain objective. And so, a writing coach could be, generally speaking, a book coach would be more specific to a book, right? But a coach is helping you achieve something that you haven't achieved before, just like any other coach in any other space, right? Right? They're holding you accountable to doing the thing and getting the results that you're hoping to get, right? An
Exactly.
editor an editor is looking at material that already exists, regardless of who wrote it. They're looking at material that already exists, and they're asking themselves a series of questions depending on what type of editing, it is, right? And we're not going to go down the rabbit hole of what type of editing. We got
Yeah.
other broadcast episodes for that.
Yeah.
So the main thing we want people to know, right, is hire the person that you actually need and want. If
Yeah.
you want to write it, you're not looking for a ghostwriter. If you don't want to write it, you could be looking for a ghostwriter.
Yep.
Here's the thing that I think is the same regardless of the relationship. And you touched on this, Danielle, in not so many words. You cannot just hand it over and walk away,
Yep.
right? Like in any relationship, whether it's book coaching or ghostwriting, you as the client are the author either way. Like, I think that's another thing that people get confused by with the ghostwriting is
Yep.
well, I didn't write a word, so am I the author? Yes, you're the author. The whole point of the word ghost in ghostwriting is that we're not usually known entities
Right.
in the process of developing the book. So the client, in both instances, book coaching or ghostwriting, is the author, right? The author has a responsibility to make sure that their book is successful by showing up and working with the person that they've hired to do the thing, whatever
Yep.
the thing is, right?
1,000%. And if we're working with a client who is not showing up and is not taking that responsibility, then the project is not going to be successful
Yeah,
ultimately, right?
right.
Because it's not fair to assume that, when you hire somebody, I like to use the example of like hiring even a cleaning person, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
when we hire a cleaning person, right? At least I do this, and I know other friends of mine do this as well. You have to organize your house so that they can clean. If there are papers all over, if there are different things, that's an organizer's job. That's a separate position, right? And it's the same thing as if you have somebody going to the grocery store and finding the specific items that you want. If something's out of stock or there's a brand that's not there, they have to communicate with you, right? If they get a brand because you didn't respond and you're mad at them because they
Yeah,
didn't choose the right
right,
thing, then you're not ultimately taking responsibility because you didn't respond, you didn't show up,
yeah,
right? The same is true for those small things, cleaning the house, the grocery shopping, as the big things like writing a book, right? And I think that people don't quite understand that. That's why I started using those examples more recently, actually, to explain that you can outsource anything, right? You can
yeah,
outsource anything you want, but there is still a responsibility for you when you're outsourcing to make sure that that person has everything they need to do their job correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This has happened to me recently where I'm feeling kind of stressed because I've got a lot of book projects right now that are kind of like bumping up against each other in all these critical moments. And I can pinpoint that one project ended up going way slower than it was supposed to because of some issues on the part of client responsibility, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so, if you are expecting your service provider, which a ghostwriter essentially is, if you're expecting
Yep.
your service provider to provide a product, right, by a certain deadline, but then you're not giving them what they need to then get there, right? Like
Right.
you're holding up the show, and you're holding up the quality of the product that you're very much investing in. So let's
Yep.
talk a little bit about the investment, okay?
Yep.
So you know, what's why is ghostwriting expensive, and
Mhm.
how does it compare to like other publishing costs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe, when you hire somebody for outsourcing, you have to think of the value system behind it. So there's time, there's energy, and there's mindset. With ghostwriting, it's very, very creative endeavor. It takes a lot of time and energy to get it right. For thought leadership books, for instance, I have to spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, reading blogs, on calls, doing interviews with that person, possibly their staff, if I feel I need to, right? We need to make sure that the way that the stories are structured and the outline, right, at the very beginning of the process, that the outline is, first of all, approved, and we know what stories are going to go in there, right? That takes a lot of time, energy, and mindset work, right?
Yeah.
To know exactly how to do that. I'm coming at this with over 17 years of writing and editing experience, right? So whenever you hire somebody who has a lot of experience in a specific field, that means they know what they're doing. And you want an expert working with you on something that is near and dear to your heart, right? I always say I'm not somebody who, you can give me, we can do a book in 2 or 3 months usually, right? And it's going to be poor quality. It's not going to be, I like to say, yes, of course you can write a book in a weekend if you want, but I'm not that. I'm not your gal for something like that, right? Like we
Yeah.
work on a high quality, high level book that's going to be something that you're going to be very proud of, right? And a lot of times, I'm sure you have clients like this too. A lot of these clients use these books for their public speaking,
Hmm.
for courses, for, I call it a book business card sometimes, right? Um, it's really important to know, and be okay with understanding how the process is, and understanding that this is a huge investment
Yep.
in multiple ways,
Yeah.
right? Just like what I was saying earlier with the 80/20 and splitting that up, the same is true not only for the time investment, but that also affects the financial investment, the energetic investment, and the mindset investment, right?
Hmm.
And if I am working with a ghostwriting client on a book that's 50,000 words, then I only like to work on a few books a year, really, because it takes up a lot of time and energy. And if you're going to pay me to do that, I have to pay my bills too, right?
Right. Yeah.
and and I want to be able to focus solely on that book project.
Yeah.
So I feel as if the more you pay, the the more time and energy you get from that person, right? It's the same thing with any other position. It's the same thing if you hire out childcare, right? or
Right.
right? And it's like, obviously daycare is going to be, a lot of times, at least from what I know, is less expensive than a full-time nanny, because the full-time nanny is the one-on-one or the one-on-two, right? Or however many kids you have.
Right.
And the
Yep.
daycare ultimately has more children, right? So you get that one-on-one or one-to-two attention. And the same is true with something like ghostwriting.
Yeah. It's a premium service, really, truthfully.
Premium service. It's a really
Um,
premium quality service.
yeah. I mean, if you're looking for a good final quality, right? Like how many times have we
Yeah.
all heard like, do you get what you pay for? And that's
Yeah.
often true, right?
Yeah.
Um, so somebody was asking me this question yesterday. They were asking me like, well, what should like somebody who's never invested in a book really expect for costs, right? And I said,
Mm.
well, it can be as little as, a few $1,000s, and it can be as much as 45,000 plus.
Yeah.
And they were like, why is it such a big range? Right. And I'm like, well, it's such a big range because you've got people on Upwork or Fiverr who are willing to take, ghostwriting projects for $500 or $2,000 for full length manuscripts, right? So
Yeah.
upwards of 20,000 words. And then you've got people who actually know what they're doing and
Yeah.
are pricing themselves. And that's not to say there's probably some really fine writers out there who are just getting started and they're just like taking anything for any price because they don't know
Right.
any better yet.
Right.
But like if you've got somebody taking something on for that amount, likely what's happening is that they're probably not that great, right? Or that
Right.
experienced.
Right.
And if you're paying attention to the industry, you meaning a client, doing your homework, you'll know that most things in publishing, ghostwriting and editing of sorts, is really based on word count. Now, not every ghostwriter bases a project entirely on word count alone, but even if you were to just do some simple math to create a budget for yourself, right? Like, a price per word for ghostwriting could be anywhere from 10 cents a word to over $1, right?
Oh yeah.
Depending on the level of experience and how many books this person has already published and et
Yep.
cetera, right? All the
Oh
different
yeah.
types of things that would go into that. So you can easily see how your costs would add up very quickly just based on word count alone,
Yeah.
for the writing when you're paying a ghostwriter. But the other thing that people need to realize is that you're paying the upfront investment, right, to a ghostwriter, but then that's it. The
Yeah.
ghostwriter doesn't have any other continued attachment financially to this book.
Exactly.
And while we know how the industry works and that the return on investment is not through book sales,
Yes.
what we do know is that if a client ends up getting a really good speaking gig because of their book and they get hired to speak for 25K, right? And they do that multiple times, like they're making their money back that way. We've
Yeah.
gotten the one payment for the one book, the one time, and then that's it. We move on, right? Like we're
Exactly.
not still dipping our hands into the pot, of that book any longer. So I
Exactly.
think that there are some nuances, right, that people are just not aware of because most people think that ghostwriting is for like the upper echelon of society. Our celebrities, our politicians, like the people that are often talked about having ghostwriters.
Yeah.
And really, there's ghostwriting of all types, right? Short form content, social media, marketing, copywriting, all kinds of stuff can be
Totally.
ghostwritten, not just books. But there's plenty of people, especially in the entrepreneurial space, who are paying ghostwriters to write their books for them because they're busy running businesses. They don't
Yeah.
have time to be writing their own books, right?
A thousand
Um,
percent.
so
I mean, you can get a consulting gig, if you're a consultant and you're working with, other visionaries, thought leaders, etc., and you go into a business and they want to hire you for, 100K for contract for a year or something, and you have a book attached to it, that's a big deal to you as, being a credible consultant. And having that, I mean, I just talked to somebody the other day who wants to elevate their thought leadership platform, and it was very interesting conversation. And he said he's running like 5 different businesses and he does not have the time or the energy and to write the book. Not only that, but a lot of these thought leaders are also very, very intelligent with how they outsource. It's not only about outsourcing, it's how they outsource. And they are very interested in doing this with a ghostwriter because they also don't want to learn how to write a book, quite frankly.
Yeah.
They know what stories need to be in the book, right? And they know that there's a lot that they want to incorporate. And the ghostwriter's job is to organize those stories, is to elaborate upon those stories, ask the right questions so that the right information gets into the book, right? So I look at it as a very, very high level, like you said, premium partnership as well.
Yeah. Partnership.
And
Right.
I think that that's a really important way to look at it. It's not complete outsourcing. It's let's do this together. But we know that the ghostwriter has the more of the heavy responsibility of
Yeah.
completing the project.
Yeah. Heavy lifting for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so I want to be mindful of the time because I know you've got an 11 o'clock call. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something called a fast round.
great.
I'm going to fire a question at you and you answer in the shortest way possible with like the gut reaction that you have.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right. So you call yourself the Soul-Aligned Ghostwriter. What does that mean to you?
I incorporate spirituality with listening and interviewing skills to create the best product.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you want to know more about that, you got to go check out Danielle's website. Okay. Next question. When it says in your bio that you use quantum healing modalities
Mhm.
in your work, what does that mean?
That means that we go into meditations where we look into your ancestral healing. We do some Reiki if necessary. I sometimes pull oracle cards for clients and I ask those very, very tough questions that make you think and dig deeply for the actual truth, the actual vulnerable story that needs to be shared.
Nice. Now, do you do that with every genre that you work in, or is it specific to memoir or?
More so memoir. I do say I use it as a tool in my toolbox. So if
Okay.
somebody is not interested at all, then we don't need to use it. But if I find that it's going to be helpful for the process, then I pull it out.
Okay. And name your favorite genre in nonfiction that you work on.
Memoir.
Memoir. Oh, see, I knew we were cut from the same cloth. Okay. My memoir sister here. Okay, next question. What is one thing that excites you about being a ghostwriter?
I love that I get to help more people, specifically thought leaders, share their stories who would ordinarily put it off because they don't have time to write a book themselves.
Okay. What challenges you about being a ghostwriter?
Ensuring that benchmarks are met throughout the process and ensuring the clients understand their responsibilities in the very beginning of the process.
Okay. What's something that pisses you off about the publishing industry?
Ooh. Um, that a lot of there are still a lot of men more than women who control um, who gets into the publishing houses. That's number one. Number two is that you have to have a certain amount of followers in order to get a traditional deal.
Yeah. Oh, good ones. Such good ones. Okay. Um, what is your favorite writing instrument?
Ooh, I'd say Scrivener.
Scrivener. Okay. Okay, we're gonna have a separate conversation about that off the record.
Yes,
So I can pick your brain about Scrivener.
yes.
Um, okay. If you were to have one drink by your side at all times while writing, what would it be?
Uh, I have two, water and chamomile tea.
Okay. All right. Mine's a maple latte, but I gave up coffee for Lent. So I can't wait to have some coffee again. Um, what about favorite writing food? Do you have a particular food that you like to snack on while you're working?
I really like unsalted nuts,
Okay.
and I have I eat a lot of fruit, like apples and peanut butter. I love apple and peanut butter.
Oh my gosh, who doesn't? Peanut butter is the greatest. Mine's peanut butter cups. I'm really not like a healthy writer over here. I'm like maple lattes, peanut butter cups, double fisting it, a little bit of words, a little bit of this. All right. Last question, Danielle. What's your superpower? What's your superpower when it comes to ghostwriting? Like, what are you bringing to the table that other people aren't?
Yeah. I consider myself, and I was told this actually yesterday in a call, I consider myself to be an energetic healer ultimately. And I bring in that healing process. I've been told that when somebody works with me, it's not only to get the book out, it's so that they can feel accomplished, that they get their story outside themselves. It's not only about the book, it's about feeling really great about the process as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I had somebody tell me something similar. They didn't use energetic healer, but they used something else.
Ooh,
And I was just explaining to somebody yesterday that the process working with me, especially on memoir, which is really where I want to be kind of
yes,
centered and known for,
yes,
is that like the process is healing. It's healing for the client, which is like almost greater than the final product of the book itself.
yeah.
But we could like have a whole other conversation about that. So
Mhm.
I've got Danielle's website on here, okay, on the banner, and it's going to be posted with the notes for the show on LinkedIn and YouTube. It looks like the Facebook Live didn't end up working out for some reason, so sorry, Facebook folks. You can go catch the replay on YouTube. So even though it's on the banner here, you'll have an actual ability to copy and paste that over and go check out everything there is to know about the Soul-Aligned Ghostwriter, Danielle Good Perlin-Good, the good Perlin, the Perlin-Good, all the things.
Yep.
Let's just put your name back up there because I just goofed it up there at the end. But Danielle, so excited to have you here with us today. Thank you so much. This was a fabulous conversation.
Thank you,
Um,
Ellie.
you are so very welcome. I'm so honored that you came onto the show. So folks, our next open book broadcast is next month on the 11th. We'll have another fabulous guest with us. In the meantime, if you're interested in coming on over to my boot camp coming up at the end of the month, I've got Climb Mount Memoir, Survival Skills Training and Boot Camp for the Aspiring Memoirist. That's happening on the 30th at noon EST. And if you're following me anywhere, you'll get the deets and find the link to register. So thanks everyone for being with us today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.